the past couple years as an opportunity to get our two boards together to kind of get an update on programs in the CRA districts and for you guys to get some direction from the city council. So I'd like to thank Chairman McGraw for agreeing that it was about time to have one of these. And we've got a few new members, and I know some of our members are missing, unfortunately. But I'd like to just go around the table really quick and let's introduce yourself. Tell us what board you're on, either hopefully only Counselor CRA are actually here. You might have wandered into the wrong meeting, and about how long you have served on the respective boards. So we'll start here to my left with Francis. Me? Yeah.
Francis Poplowski, CRA. I will finish out my 12th division.
Ron Whittington, I just started on the CRA board about 3 months ago, and I'm an alternate, so I listen.
Sandy?
Sandy Golding, City Council, I think almost 6 years or so, something like that.
Dan Jansen, City Council, 3.5 years.
Jerry Pintel, CRA, 4 years.
Fernando Meza, elected since 2020, City Council.
Megan Edwards, 5 months on the CRA. But who's counting?
David McGraw, CRA, I think 2.5 years now.
Mostly CRA alternate, 5 months maybe, 5 or 6.
Okay, so we've got some new faces, unfortunately. 2 of our members are out of town, I think, and at least one for sure is, and then one of our members is running a little bit late, so Bill Horn should be joining us at some point. So a couple just structural updates. We have, as you know, because a few of you are in the roles, we added 2 positions to this board, which are the first and second alternate, which is something we've been wanting to do for a while. So I'm glad we went ahead and did that to give you guys a little bit of a bench if you have absences, but also to have some people that are learning the CRA. Ultimately, if there's absences or if there's vacancies, can move up, which we do. Very recently received the resignation from Christy. She moved out of the country, so which is a bummer because I know we were all really excited about her joining the CRA, as we have been about all of you, but so it was unfortunate that she was there for a short time, but we will be working on filling that vacancy as well as when we get to our kind of board interviews and renewals and everything like that towards the end of the year, replacing the vacant position wherever it may be left. So we'll be working on that as a council, and I think we will go ahead and start working through our agenda, and I'll throw it to staff to give us South End District update.
All right. So these are your agenda topics tonight. Obviously, once we get through these, or even during these, if something else comes up, please ask away. So first, on the South End District, staff has been working with Parks and Rec with consultants to draft this plan for additional parking along Ponce de Leon. We have got the vertical parking spaces here. We're also looking at having the consultants do parallel parking as well. Originally, we thought we would like angled parking, but once we looked at that, the flow of traffic does not work for angled parking. Either, depending on which way we angled it, there would be issues coming in or coming out. So currently, this down here, we are planning on pretty much stopping parking about right here. We're not going to go into that buffered zone. The current fence line would be moved back in these renderings, so we're not going to be encroaching severely onto that street. That fence would bump back, and then these parking spaces will kind of scoot in there, so you'll still have essentially the same amount of street space that you have now. We're also planning, after staff review, on adding about 5 pedestrian entry points along this parking, so people aren't having to try to climb a fence or walk all the way around. Very hard to tell, but there were handicap spaces up here, and after staff talked about it, we felt like it was most appropriate to move the handicap spaces inside of the fence and then keep those exterior spaces just all regular parking. And we're possibly considering, we know that this is going to be really challenging with traffic flow. Obviously, we're not going to come in and cut something on South Beach Parkway. That just seems really, really dangerous and unnecessary. But what we're looking at is right here where there was going to be this pedestrian access is potentially having a one-way. So if somebody backs out here, they could drive up, go
And they're probably not parking kind of within,
It's a little bit of a hot mess from what we've seen.
that's the official term.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I got it. So, so expectation of neighbor reaction is
Sure.
gonna be,
We hope, because this will give us the ability to regulate that, whereas right now we don't have that ability, that the neighbors will be receptive. We also understand that changing things so close to your home is always gonna be a delicate situation. So we anticipate kind of going about this like we did the passive park, where the immediately affected properties will go door to door. I mean, literally Heather and I went and knocked on doors and passed out door hangers and talked to people. So we plan to do that with all the affected homes and then kind of put out a massive blast to the area on what we're planning to do. But definitely keep that communication open with the residents to have their feedback. We just have not done that yet. We wanted to show this here tonight and get your feedback, kind of fine tune this concept and then discuss it with the homeowners.
I was going to ask the same question the mayor asked on the feedback from the neighbors.
Sure.
That's really important.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and if all goes according to plan, what's the timeline for installing this parking?
We're not totally sure at this time. Jason, if you have a better timeline, feel free to jump in. Parks has been spearheading a lot of this for us. We're very thankful for them. Again, right now we're at concept, so. Jason.
So, yeah, we had a concept, if council and CRA agrees, I'm gonna say it would take the design consultants another 3 to 4 months to come up with a final plan. And then on Monday, hopefully council will approve our concrete bid that would give us a contractor ready at hand, so.
I would just add that one of a couple of things that we need to take a look at, as long as we're already taking a look at parking, Jason, is that we ought to take a look at the rest of the parking lot and see if there's any way that we could make it more efficient, and maybe squeeze a few more spaces in. Biggest challenge we have is on weekends, that parking lot is completely full. We've got cars parked on the landscape islands and things to that extent. And any additional parking that we can find would be beneficial. We're never gonna solve the problem down there, unfortunately. We've created such a wonderful space for the community and others, but we've gotta try to do as much as we can in the way of finding parking. You've done a great job in the landscaping down there most recently. It's really very nice. I hope that we do something to make sure the cars don't park on the grass areas or the newly landscaped areas, because that's been a major problem to the point where it impedes visibility. People are trying to come in and out on South Beach Parkway and stuff like that. At least that's what I've seen in the past. So, yeah, I think you've heard my concerns before, but just wanted to mention that.
Jason, I would imagine that there was an engineering study done when that was first designed, the park, but if not, then maybe we can look at having a parking engineering study done on the park itself and see if there's any way that they can improve upon the spaces that are available.
We'll do that, Mr. Jackson, thank you.
and I think even if there's not enough land or spots for actual vehicles, golf carts, that's another alternative I see a lot.
And I heard Jason say concrete vendor, are we planning on paving this, or is this gonna be something permeable?
Again, kind of to be determined. What we did discuss in our staff meeting though was potentially having it be concrete. That was just kind of the preference, but again, if we got a different direction, then none of that's set in stone yet.
And the contractor will handle either.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there is a possibility
Yeah.
that it could be permeable.
Mhm.
I think that would be my preference,
Okay.
if that's feasible.
And on the golf cart parking, something else that we talked about is kind of down here where we weren't sure how far into that buffer zone we wanted to go. We did talk about squeezing in, the smaller either compact car or golf cart spaces, just because those are really popular ways to get to the park. And if we can provide designated spaces for those, and then they're not taking up, 10 car spaces, it'll help to mitigate that problem some.
All I'll say about the compact cars, that no one listens to compact cars, so you can see.
We'll just label it golf carts
It needs to be
only.
Golf carts only.
And we'll still have
because you will have a Ford 150 in there.
Yeah.
no problem.
Okay, noted.
Sure.
All right. Yeah. All right.
I like this direction,
Okay.
and I think we're a victim of our own success down there at South Beach Park, so.
A good problem.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think solution, or not a solution completely, but a good help to the problem.
Anybody else have any questions before we continue? All right. Just a couple of things. We've got a lot of new businesses in the South End. Things are really booming down there. We have added Nordstrom Rack, J. Crew Factory. We have a new Baptist Primary Care, Bath and Body Works, Sephora, Tacos and Tequila, and here soon we will be getting TJ Maxx. So things are really thriving. If you've been down there at all, if you've seen how crowded these stores are. And then just kind of to refresh everyone on our passive park, we had a few setbacks when we lost a little bit of communication time on getting our engineering documents. I have a meeting with the consultants Monday just to kind of get a status update, but they are working on all of our engineer drawings, our drainage, our construction, and then also the custom signs that we wanted for some of the history and educational signage. And so we anticipate having those hopefully within the next 30 days. Once we have that, we'll be able to move forward with this. So we're really just waiting on our construction drawings.
Remind me who's helping us with our history plaques and what we're gonna be putting out. Remind me who.
So CHW is going to be working on those. The actual content that we get on there, I think we'll work with staff and then probably the historical.
Well, there's the historical
Yeah.
School as well as the
Yeah.
museum. I think between the two, the Heritage
Yeah,
Center would be a good
absolutely.
place to also include.
Yeah, we'll absolutely be reaching out to those resources to make sure we've got the best information on the signs.
The benefit for everybody that this is on our website, this graphic.
Yes. The last time I looked, it was.
So best case timeline?
Once we get the engineer drawings, because we are going to have this new concrete contract, and we also have a landscape contractor in place, in theory, we could sit down with them, and I think this could be something we could expedite. 6 months, 9 months.
And then once everything is in place, because I just love to ask this question, does this fall to parks to maintain, or who's in charge of making sure that water bottle filler works?
That is a great question. So something we've started doing on all of our CIP projects is listing out now sort of this project management plan where we clearly identify the process, and then once completion, who's going to maintain, how we're going to check in, regular meetings, and how we're going to maintain these. So Parks and Recreation will be helping us to maintain this. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
It's my understanding that council the other night made the decision to go ahead and proceed with the
Jacksonville Drive Urban Trail.
urban trails. That's not the term I want to use, but the path along Jacksonville Drive. I don't know whether there's anything more that needs to be done at this intersection to accommodate that ultimately, but it just should be something we ought to think about and just make sure if there is something that we need to do, then it should become part of this plan and try to get that accomplished at the same time. It's just a little bit of a thought.
And the crosswalk markings will be colored?
Yes. And Gary, to your point, we're going to have signage at basically both ends that directs people to where the next connection point of the urban trail will be. So we'll make sure that we reference the Jack's Drive portion of the trail.
Because the urban trail right now is on the south side of Jacksonville Drive, so you gotta come across, go to the north side, and then you would continue across South Beach and then along the north side of Jacksonville Drive to 81A. Just something for us to think about. How do we want to treat that intersection? Is it something that needs a little more attention and identification? Because there is a lot of traffic at that intersection and some speeding vehicles that will make it makes it difficult to cross that intersection.
All right. Our favorite one, Latham Plaza. So the last time we actually sat down and talked about this as one big group was back in July. And just kind of a reference point, we went back and listened to the meeting, went back and kind of checked over our notes. These were the main objectives that came out of that meeting. So really to focus those amenities to the western third of the plaza, to still leave the majority of the space open to kind of accommodate day-to-day use and events. And on that same note, consolidating that activated space to keep a portion of it open still. Keeping that to make the terraces, make them far less, we didn't want a whole bunch of terraces, and to relocate that smaller stage to the western end of the plans. Since the last time we talked with City Council, which has only now been a couple of weeks ago, we did get an updated version of the video that we showed you. So we'd like to show you that tonight and then kind of get some direction on maybe looking at a new approach to this project. So here it is. And this would be like you're looking out of City Hall. And again, that middle feature is not actually water. We did away with the water feature. We don't know what it will be. It's going to be some type of an artistic feature, but it will not be actively running water. You can see the open space.
This is the first time anyone's seen this besides staff.
Yes, sir. This one. All right, so, something that we've met a lot internally to just try to figure out what the best way is to go about this. And something that we've had a lot of success with on these kind of larger projects that stemmed from master planning from several years ago is to essentially just kind of break it out and make it easier to digest by taking small bites out of these things. And something we would like to discuss and maybe consider is focusing on this portion only. And rather than coming in and saying we're going to rip out the whole plaza and we're going to go, from end to end, maybe taking this small section, it's really not used that much in festivals right now anyway, so we feel that we would be able to get this portion done and really not impede on the festivals too much. We would still be able to have our events, and then once this is done, we would be able to kind of say, okay, that now we've set the standard for how we want the rest of the plaza to fall into place, and go from there. And then also, kind of be able to budget that out over the next couple of fiscal years as well. You like that?
I do. I like that very much.
Yeah. And again, I think, when you're showing aerial drawings, even sometimes showing these videos, it becomes really hard to understand truly what that is going to look like actually in the space on the day-to-day. And we feel like if we get this done, and this is a really high-quality area, we also think it'll make the public and council and the CRA and everyone more comfortable moving forward with the rest of the project.
I think it's smart, especially with the P3 on the horizon. We don't want to put something up and have to turn around and just tear it right down and reinvent the wheel or
Sure.
to that
Will this
effect,
be
so.
on the website and shared on social media?
Yep. And on the P3 note, something that if we were to get direction, over the next few weeks that, we are comfortable moving forward with this, when we solicit that project out, we would like to show the private sector, the public investment that we are putting into the space, to show them that this is going to be right outside your doors when you're trying to recruit businesses. It's not going to look like it does right now. We would like to be able to add that as an element to the project.
So, smart.
I want to confirm that we're relocating our current palm trees and utilizing them to enhance the shading area, or that is the plan, right? To reuse those trees and put them
As
over
best
there?
as we can.
Because it's
There's-
you're
we're a
still gonna mess
little-
up that area a little bit by removing the trees that
Yeah.
are over there.
And something, I don't know that anyone other than the two of us have talked about, because it just came up, we were looking at the way this is laid out, and, ultimately if it came down to it and we didn't want to relocate them, there is still only one path up the middle. Maybe some get to stay put and we add new ones to add shade coverage. I think we can be pretty flexible with that.
My only issue with this is that the whole area, green area, there's absolutely no shade, and our biggest complaint is there's not enough shade there now.
Mhm.
So if we were only gonna focus our, leisure area to one area, 1/3 of it, I think it needs to be as many trees as
Yeah.
possible that we can keep the trees. If we can keep costs down by just keeping our trees, that'd be best.
If we go forward with just this third, which I agree is a good approach, will the two big concerns that we haven't really seen but have always been talked about are power and the lighting. So would this include that? Because
It would have to for this section.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense to go in and do all these updates and then have to come back in and tunnel under it, so yeah, it would
I
have to.
just wanted to make sure of
Well, you're
that.
gonna have a stake at that end that's gonna be used.
That's gonna have power.
But I mean getting rid of the bollards and the
Yes.
carriage lamps that are there and making something a little more modern. And then the other question is, and it's not in this section, but one of the things, and I've been having some meetings and looking at the plan a little more in preparation for this meeting, is that with the P3 project and the idea that we don't really have a walkway going across, so I think that that's something we need to think about too, just in terms of,
Okay.
if you park over at that P3 and you wanna
Sure.
walk over to Oaxaca or
South.
walk over to Surfer Bar, whatever's over there,
Okay.
there's not, that's gonna just have some wear and tear, so just something to think about, maybe
Yep.
if you, something different, maybe a little more artistic, maybe it's, I don't know, mosaic,
Yeah.
or stamped
Okay.
concrete or something like that, I don't know, but just something to think about going across the middle. And that may come later, once we see how the P3 is gonna line up, but we've got that opening now with the 2 big planter boxes.
Right.
That seem to be in a good line
Okay.
across the middle, so just something to think about.
Yeah.
Well, Costco's got retractable bollards on sale right now.
Costco,
They
did
do.
you say?
I promise you, is that not
Like
true, City
Costco.
Manager?
It is true. It's sad, but it's true.
I guess I'm just trying to get them in here with.
Well, so, I mean, it looks like there is a path, I mean, there's those 2 paths, so.
But that's way down at that end, I'm talking about like across the middle, so more kind of at the halfway point.
Yeah, I think that would be easy enough to add.
And it may not be in this round, but as we go east with it.
And I think to your point, once we solicit that P3 project and we do have an idea and know what the developers are gonna bring to the table, we can kind of gauge where we wanna put that connection point, where it makes the most sense with the P3 and the other side of the street.
Or where they put their own door.
Do we really think that this is going to do what we had originally contemplated? In that the main premise was that we wanted to activate that space so that there would be more people down there during the middle of the week and so forth. Do we really think that this plan as it is now will really activate that space?
When you say that space, you mean the entire plaza or the west end?
Well, if you're gonna do it in pieces, then you look at it in pieces, but if you do it as a whole, yes, then you would look at the whole thing. But
They have a stage
I
there.
just don't see us getting to the point of what we were really, the main premise of why we were trying to do something with Latham Plaza. I'm not quite there with what I'm seeing out there.
We have a stage now, so we can have acoustic guitars on off days. We have, you have space that people can do yoga now that's not in the middle of the heat, because they'll be shaded. I know the farmer's market's a thing, which is on the other part, but that's starting as well. It doesn't have the little chess tables, and it doesn't have the stuff for the residents down the way.
It easily
But
can.
that easily
Got
can be
tables
added
and
on with
chairs.
a different budget. I mean, I was very vocal about us not doing the whole thing at first, and Chris and I kind of butt heads on the 1/3. But the fact that there's a stage there does activate it, it gives us more area to solicit other people to
Yeah.
come and do stuff there. We didn't have that before, we had to set up that temporary stage, and right now it's just all concrete and a statue of a guy looking at the lady with a face suit on, like, that's all it is right now.
And if I may add to that point, activation, and I was guilty of this at first too, when I'm thinking of activating the space, I'm thinking literal physical construction, physical things in the site. And, I wanna give kudos to the Parks Department, to Allison specifically. She's been also working to activate the space with several events, and the way she's been pushing out these events and promotion. She's doing a wonderful job. We were looking for a weekend to have an art event, and I can tell you, basically from August to the end of the year, I think there were 4 weekends where something wasn't programmed into the space. So I think we have to keep that in mind too when we're talking about activation. It's also the back end of it, scheduling these events, working with event promoters, making sure we're fitting their needs. If there is an arts market or a farmer's market, now we have tables and chairs and shades. So if people are buying things, they can sit down, they can enjoy stuff. I think the activation of the space kind of goes on both sides.
But the activation needs to be not the weekend, right? It needs to be during the week. Yeah.
Shakespeare in the Park.
Yes, programming that does it, and I'm on
Right.
our reading board, and that's what drives people. It's not space, it's what
Right.
you're doing in the space.
But I think that if you walk out there right now and you look at this exact space, there's nothing to do there. Even a shady spot to sit on the grass, it's not there. It's shrubs, it's mulch, there's nothing inviting about that space at all. So I think even just this is going to change the dynamic of that space. I could see city staff going out there and eating their lunch and things like that.
And
Not
the-
this
lunch with my significant other. Sometimes when we don't wanna eat inside the restaurant, or we don't wanna eat home, we wanna eat outside, we go sit at the gazebos and enjoy the fresh air.
Yeah.
So I think, once this is, available, I know I see myself using it, going to Jack or Wahapa,
Right.
getting food to go and sitting down and just enjoying the breeze and enjoying the view, so, looking forward to it.
So to address, kind of Gary's point, what I see this is kind of a chicken and the egg, problem. And we're not gonna see the true vision until the P3 building comes in there, but we're not gonna get the best investment without doing something. So this is like a step one into making this amazing, and then once those two structures are complete, now we can look at the whole space and go, how do we make this incredible? Let's just get this started so that we can get the P3, because once we wrap that Latham Plaza in entertainment or restaurants and all that stuff, that's going to activate the space by default. People are gonna wanna walk into the park to finish, you know, their meal or their ice cream or whatever they get there. And, so I think it's kind of chicken and egg, and I do think we need to go further, but maybe not right now.
Well, I don't think we need the P3. I think our goal has always been, we want it to be a place that the residents want to go to. So it shouldn't necessarily be dependent on the P3. We want it to be a place that our residents want to visit, regardless of whether there's a P3 there or not. So I think that should be our focus, really.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think you can do this, it benefits that, and you get a better, you know, I think it just all layers on top of each other, like you're saying, with the chicken and egg. But I don't think you can't do this to get that, you know what I mean? So,
I don't see the dependency there. I agree. I think that we activate this on the west end, and then we look at it again, once P3, whatever it imagines to be. I don't think we go and do the entire park and then turn around, and something does happen with the P3, then we have to go destroy everything we put in place.
I mean, I agree that building on it is what we need to do. I just want to make sure, because this is the initial step, so are we all in agreement that this is really going to initiate what we want to have happen ultimately? And I think all the pieces of this puzzle just need to be put together, and I think we'd end up having a pretty significant, unique development down there.
I would like to see more polish with this design, isn't like the umbrellas or, metal umbrellas, are those gonna be the right thing? I'd like to see some kind of destination place, like a giant oversized lifeguard chair where kids are gonna jump on, and so we can take pictures. I want people to come downtown, take pictures and hashtag Jack's Beach, So I think we need more polish and more, branding instead of, all right, we got a surfboard, I guess that could be a destination program, but I would like to see more polish on the things, but the general layout, I like.
You know, Atlanta would have the Olympic rings, so one of
Right.
inside the Olympic rings,
Exactly.
it would be kind of cool. I know it would be a hazard, and we probably can't have a lifeguard, with the steps going up to the top. It'd be kind of cool if someone could actually take a picture inside the A-frame of the.
okay.
I agree with Gary a little bit. It can feel a little event space still. How much seating is down there? Is proposed to be down there, like with the benches or tables or something like that? How much is supposed to be, is proposed?
So, really and truly, as much as we can fit in without it looking cluttered, we wanna provide ample space to accommodate people. Until we really get into those engineered drawings and really kind of fine tune, to David's point, really fine tune this concept, we just don't have an exact number.
So I agree, we wanna activate the space
Sure.
during the week. And right now, it still looks event spacey,
Yeah.
right? And no doubt we can get events booked. I mean,
Yeah.
it's awesome to go down there and do it. But like during the week, we don't necessarily wanna rely on the restaurants. You're at the restaurants, then you wander over to the park. Why not get everybody over to the park so that they
Right.
wander over to the restaurants? And make sure those restaurants stay here. So I think it's a great direction, but I agree, just a little more
Okay.
interaction that's there in the week.
I was just gonna ask, it may not be the forum, but like, when you voted, when the collective, we voted last year on the 55-foot thing, and my understanding was that right after that happened, this was gonna go to the P3, and then we're 13 months in and nothing's happened. Like, why is it months past, well, we were told, because I was told, I mean, I remember we talked about this, and it's like, well, once the vote comes, 35 feet, 55 feet,
Right.
we're ready to go. And we're 13 months later, and we're not there.
Yeah, I think, put it simply, there were so many other projects that were actively going on. We've only got the staff that we have, and we just had to prioritize. We also had never really done a P3, so we really had to do our research and our homework to make sure we understood the statutes and how the P3s were regulated statutorily, and then start working towards putting together our own internal policies and figuring out how procurement was gonna go, how the bidding process was gonna go. And that just, quite frankly, took a lot of time to make sure we were crossing the Ts, dotting our Is. We wanted to make sure this is done right.
So where does it stand now?
We have a draft together, but something we learned in that process was that you have to have a certified engineer or architect's design criteria package put together before you can go out on the street and solicit a project. Jones Edmonds is working on that for us right now. We're supposed to have it by the end of the week. Once we have that, then we'll sit down with our finance department, procurement, and the actual RFP we've written several months ago. We'll fine tune that based on the design criteria package and based on the statute, and then we should be able to move.
What is the cost?
For,
Just design.
we don't have a cost. So what we'll do with this is put the package out. We've got our criteria that the city wants to see. And then it'll be the developer's responsibility to come to us with their proposal, and as part of their proposals, they will include the financing portion and how they want to see this project financed. Do they have financial backing? What kind of a deal structure? And those will come in those negotiations.
Are we gonna see the final package before it goes out?
The bid package?
Typically,
I was gonna say typically-
no, the whole package wouldn't go to anybody, but the details of like the scope and the design criteria and all that. And we've gone over a lot of that with you guys in different meetings, and this is just really getting down to the more detailed components of what we want setbacks to look like and what we want different elements of the project to look like in a little bit more detail. But we can certainly share that before we get it out.
I've been asking for that for 4 years now, to get a copy of what the proposal is going to be that's gonna go out on the street. Mike, you told me 4 years ago that I would get a copy once we got the new city attorney on board, and that I never received anything. We haven't received anything in the way of a document as a CRA that we can take a look at and say that we're in agreement with it. What is the ultimate deal that the city wants in relationship to this P3? I don't think that discussion has ever happened. And we need to have a conversation about what that is going to be.
Well, when you say deal, do you mean financial or appearance and function?
I'm talking about what the concept is that we would like to see in that, on that parcel of land. Right now, you're working with an architect to try to come up with something. We haven't seen that yet, whatever that document is.
Just to back up for a second, what staff is talking about, the design criteria package, is literally a bullet list that's a couple pages long of functionality and amenities that we would like incorporated in the project. There is no design per se of what it will specifically look like, fit, finish, etc., specific landscaping or trees. It talks more to function. The proposals that we will receive could be anything and everything. And I've sat in on a few of the meetings that we've had with our outside consultant, Mr. Gilmore, to talk about this from the perspective that someone could come in and say, we understand the city's looking to do a long-term land lease on this property. One developer could say, our proposal is to execute a long-term lease where we pay you rent, and in exchange, we don't ask for any cash up front. Another developer could come in and say, we want you to be financial partners up front, and in exchange for being a financial partner, we will pay a rent in the form of X over a certain term period. There will be a lot of financial analysis that goes into this in negotiation with the selected proposal based on what they give us. And the parameters were wide enough that we could see everything from all commercial to a combination of commercial and residential and professional office in this co-mingled
So there isn't anything that the city wants in the way of a true concept. Do we want that land to be city land forever? Do we just want to rent it?
what do we wanna see in the downtown area that we would like to put in this development that we have no real control over because it's an agreement between the city and, because we don't own that property, right? The city
You know,
does.
that's the one thing we've been finding out here in the last
We don't,
couple of
we,
weeks.
we haven't, we've never owned that property, the city owns that property. So we as a CRA, our purview is to say, hey, we'd like you guys to consider having them do this because it would help with our, the places that we're building up. So we did have that conversation, and that's why bathrooms are in there. I think we had discussion about the parking, how many parking spots must stay in it. We had a discussion about it having access. Hmm?
Please?
Yep.
Yeah, that we asked about having a police, station in there, maybe even doing an information center.
And I agree with you,
So
Francis,
we
on
have
the
to have that.
functionality side. What I'm trying to understand is what is the deal, if anything, that the city wants out of this when they go in front of a developer?
But that's not our role.
Yes, it is.
Not the
I
CRA's
think there's a
role.
responsibility that we have as a CRA from a fiduciary standpoint to understand what the deal structure is and whether we agree with it. And ultimately, city council needs to come, participate in that
So
conversation.
the deal will be a negotiation, and at some point, we will sign off on the deal. So we will have full disclosure of everything that's agreed to, what the city's giving, what the developer is giving, but we can't know that right now.
Yeah,
We don't
there's no
even
way to
know
know.
what
I
the
was just
interest is,
gonna add
if
that
there's
it's a little
interest.
premature.
Yeah, so I think we're way early for that, and it's gonna be a give and take, and as I said, we haven't done a P3 probably since the original Latham Plaza.
Taylor,
In the deal structures that I've worked on in the past, the cities have many times come and they have stated specifically what they wanted in reference to the deal structure. That's why I'm trying to, I just wanna make sure, if we're saying we don't have any criteria, we don't have any requirements, fine, then we'll go down that road. But in deals that I've worked in the past, the city has always had certain criteria, so sometimes what they want on that property, which is the functionality thing that you're talking about, and then also financially how they want to see it happen. That the city is not putting up any money, the only thing that they're doing is putting up the land, that it's going to be a rental, it's not going to be a sale. That puts the whole deal in proper perspective for everybody.
Well, I think we're saying that, it's gonna be a long-term lease.
And the beauty of this process is if deals come to the table that quite frankly do not work, and don't make sense financially for the city, we have no obligation to do anything until we find a deal that everyone is comfortable with. That just comes
That's right.
at a later date.
I would rather have less criteria and more
Right.
creativity.
Absolutely.
And then we always have the ability to say, nah,
Yeah, and that's exactly where we're at. That's exactly what the design criteria package allows us to do.
Okay, well, let me take you back. What did you say Jones Edmonds was working on?
So they're working on the design criteria package. It's required by the state statute, for the procurement process of this. It's truly just having a firm, sign off on the
All right,
design
and
criteria.
then my second question for you is there some kind of connection between the west end of this and the waterless waterfall project that we have at Second
Yeah.
Beach?
Yes. So when the art committee, awarded that sculpture, one of the reasons they went with these columns that were a little tall, a little large, and brightly colored was anticipating that at some point, the backdrop of that is going to be a large building. And so we wanted that focal point to still remain really vibrant and bright. And so that went into our committee's consideration.
But there is a connection between that and the
Oh,
west
yeah.
end, there's gonna be sidewalk or some kind of,
The building could potentially, depending on how this deal negotiation, goes, the building could come very close to that section. We just don't know. But if not, we'll make sure it's connected.
Maybe that should be one of the things we add is things we'd like them to consider in our function and whatnot, is to have the access to that.
And when
part of
the art project, it very well may be completed, by the time this goes on the street, that would also be a component that we would add into the package we put out, showing the public investment with the park, with the art piece, and kind of what's flanking this project.
Just a quick question. Francis, I remember one of the briefings, joint meetings we had, we were talking about parking. How many parking spots do we have right now? In Latham?
around 150.
And I remember, I can't remember if I did say this or I was just dreaming, but I know I remember talking about parking. There's no point of building, this P3 project if we're gonna take away 50 parking spots. And we talked about that, correct? So,
It sounds right. The city wanted to keep all 150. And that was part of the function.
And add
So we're
to
not
it.
really-
I was gonna say,
We're gonna add more in the
same number of parking spaces. This is literally a parking
And
garage.
because we had a debate about,
Yeah.
if I remember right, we had a debate about, with the height limits and what have you, what could they actually build, and would they wanna be able to give up that space, and we were gonna have above ground rights versus ground right, we had that whole.
If I could just take a quick pause to interrupt the discussion. Bill Horn has come in since we first did introductions.
Oh.
He is a member of the city council. Yeah. Are you ready for your presentation, Mr. Horn?
Floor is yours.
He's been on council for 2 years, and then Councilor Greg Sutton is also joining us on the phone, so he is here as well. So just wanted to give you guys that update on it.
Here's this.
Oh.
Sorry, Brad.
Okay. Thank you for bringing up that topic. That was on my list as well.
All right.
Let's go.
Okay, cool. We're not gonna watch that again. All right, another fun one. So, this is the best aerial picture that they have without me borrowing a drone, and nobody wants me doing that. So, yes.
Serious?
All right,
So
so,
we know what we can and can't plant there.
stay with me, stay with me. All right, this is the current condition. We really want to get this project moving. This is what is approved by DEP for us to do. And the reason we want to do this overlay is to really show everyone, we've heard a lot, we need to open it back up for parking. That fenced off area is not parking. It wasn't before, and it's not proposed now, and it's not in the approved DEP plan. So
It was
It
before.
was
there
before.
was some, but that's
Like
where
like
you kind
not a
of went
lot
in,
of
and
parking.
right, it wasn't a huge component of that lot. And so these plans are the plans that have, been around since probably 1819. These plans incorporate new landscaping along these signs. These kind of stripe areas are decorative pavers. These are also decorative pavers that tie into what is on the boardwalk. And the biggest change here is this new driveway. So you basically would pull in, and then you're able to turn left, you drop off here, and you go into the parking lot. What we would like to see happen, we're very happy we have everyone in the room at the same time. With this potential contract that Parks and Recreation is bringing to the table Monday night, those contractors have the ability to get started on this concrete and these pavers, if that contract was awarded. We also have a current contract in place with landscapers who are able to do the landscaping work. So after Monday night, if things were approved, we would like to then sit down with them. Part of the DEP permit, we have to have a site visit with DEP. Once we have contractors in place and we know that this is who we're using, I can then schedule that visit, get DEP out here with our contractors, and we can begin executing this. I know, and the reason, we brought it up, we had talked about potentially trying to find temporary solutions. What we ran into when digging really deep into that permit is if we remove that fencing and just, let's say, blacktopped it or temporarily did something to make parking to get through the season, we violate that permit. And that permit took a year to get. So that is not something we're looking to do unless you guys give us guidance to do that. We would prefer to not violate that permit.
Question, so, red arrow, you go straight,
Yes,
that's the pier entrance?
yes.
You're looking at the white,
Piers right here.
okay,
Yep.
and that will be,
Spring Hill's here.
okay, I am trying to think forward, obviously, the pier, I see it's heavy foot traffic,
Sure.
especially during the weekends. With cars going in there, sometimes traffic backs up.
Sure.
And I guess this is a question for Mr. Commander Crumley. I'm just talking about pedestrian foot traffic
Mhm.
and blocking that area, how,
Right
They
now,
can
there's
pull
a sidewalk right along.
Right, and
the
they'll still be,
hotel.
the sidewalk will be there
Upstairs.
still. These portions right here, and then these little sections throughout here are actually bike racks. So we'll still have the full sidewalk, we're adding bike racks, and we're changing the landscaping some where it doesn't just kind of slope off into a sidewalk. It's got defined spaces, and then also adding that extra layer of kind of protection from parking lot to sidewalk with bike racks. And then for the pedestrians out here, when this turns in, it's really hard to tell on these, but these are actually pretty massive planter beds that actually have some, if you've been by the Ritz parking lot recently, there's some stonework in those. This kind of calls for those bigger boulders. Not saying a car can't drive through it, it just makes it a lot more difficult.
So this is
Does anyone-
wetland, right?
Correct, yep,
because I know on First Street, it's all pavers.
right.
Some people can't tell the difference between the sidewalk and the street, so I just wanna make sure people walking on the boardwalk, where can tell that this is
Mhm.
the boardwalk or not.
Since you had a stupid question, I have one.
Okay.
I'm not gonna challenge DEP, part of,
Yes,
is
yes.
that correct? Why are they involved in this, just so I,
Great question.
That's not.
We have no choice.
what?
It was not up to us.
Yeah.
It's required because of its proximity to the dunes and to the ocean, and then with the sea turtle nest. The main reason DEP is involved is because of sea turtles and the lighting requirements. Yep.
Correct.
I wish I was joking.
Now, I thought back, I
I
thought at
didn't
one
think about that.
point when Glad and Jackson was involved, was this not gonna be like, were they suggesting that it be like a drop-off place and like more circular as opposed to?
It was-
Am I right thinking
I
of
don't
something
recall
else?
like a circle drop
No.
off, like the one we had at Beach Boulevard.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I think this was always kind of the plan, once it kind of shifted to this design.
Right.
I remember seeing a
Okay.
circular drop
I
off.
was looking, trying to find it, I couldn't find it.
Sandy, there was a roundabout there in the original plan of Glady Jackson.
In
That's what
07, I
I-
A
think.
roundabout at Fourth and First.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's what you're thinking of,
Okay.
I got you.
Yeah,
Real
maybe that
quick,
was
another
the-
question.
Well, that's a long story.
So is
Sorry,
there,
I was gonna say it, but it did.
Okay.
DEP, is there certain ingress into the, off the beach that they, if the city builds? Just curious.
There
it just,
is.
It just here, or is this all the way down the beach?
There is, so it's all the way down the beach. It's actually, with sea turtles, it's essentially if you can see a sand dune from where you're building, DEP has to be involved where the light is concerned for turtle lighting. With this, because it's touching the dunes, we also have pretty strict parameters on how we have to secure the site to ensure we're not having any runoff into the beach and towards the ocean.
Thank you.
So going back, this side, what I like about Fourth is that if you look down it, you can see kind of all the way up the pier. Are we losing that sidewalk though along the side of the hotel?
Nope.
No.
Okay, so that'll still be, okay. And then, just because I have certain things I like to say at certain points in every meeting, is let's not forget to reinstall the SS Gulf of America historical marker, please.
Okay.
Mike has that on his list.
No, it's on our list.
It's
Okay,
on my
I
list,
promise.
it just doesn't fit our poles that we normally use, so we've got the sign, we just don't have the pole
As
to be
long
able
as
to
we
mount.
have that sign.
We do.
And have some forward progress towards getting it reinstalled, I'm happy camper.
We've ordered the signpost and all the
That
materials.
one's going? Is the Jack's Beach Pier sign going?
Oh, yeah.
It is going to be redone. It's in a little bit of disrepair. It needs to be fixed. And that is right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this lines right up the Fourth, so this, again, it still allows you to look straight down and straight out onto the pier. The reason that you can't see that the sidewalk is here is because these plans are so dated that this, at the time, it said future building, because at the time, nobody knew what it was, but the hotel is here now and that sidewalk will remain.
So what's a best case scenario on this one, timeline wise?
Depending on where we can get in line with our contractors. So if everything's approved Monday night, we can begin conversations with them, set up meetings starting Tuesday, and once we figure out where we can fall in the line of their projects and how backed up they are, I think we'll have a much better idea. So I don't wanna speak to anything until we talk to those contractors, because I wanna make sure we're realistic on giving you a good timeline.
I think that's, I'm very happy to see this taking such a big step forward, and I do like having the ingress to the parking lot, because there's only one other way in and out right now, which is
Right.
very strange for such a big parking lot.
A one-way drive-in?
It is,
So it's a
yes, sir.
one- So it almost there needs to be a sign at the entrance that says maybe just drop off only, because if everybody comes in this way, if you're coming down Fourth Street and into the pier, and everybody's gonna be using that to access the parking, those people, they're gonna stop and drop off all their equipment so they can go fishing on the pier, and they're gonna block traffic. Either that needs to be a little bit wider so that two cars can pass one
Can't go
another.
Can't change it.
I'm sorry.
It's wide enough, I believe it's 25 or 27 feet wide, so it's wide enough for 2 lanes if someone stopped out here that
As
someone
long
could
as you've got enough
Sure.
Yeah, there's
space
plenty of
there,
but we
because
cannot change
I can
any of
see
this
that
without
backing
starting
up
over.
into First Street very easily, and as well as blocking Fourth.
We just put a sign that says 15-minute drop off.
Absolutely.
something along
Wait,
those
see if
lines.
it becomes a
About
problem.
five.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 to 7.
Yeah, my concern when I asked originally was that one way, was people coming out of the parking lot, it was convenience of.
Absolutely, and we'll make sure we have,
Someone
you
on the entire
signs
equipment in a
that,
car.
and arrows will be
You need to
painted on the
park.
concrete as well, we'll do everything we
Drag.
can to mitigate that.
drive there, I mean, what is that? Is that a tree?
That is a
Oh,
tree.
that one was
Okay.
the palm tree.
Yeah.
So true, so, okay, I mean, we need to have some shade in here, and something, I think, that, you know, just for the purposes of
I
general.
think that hotel shades it pretty well.
It
according
does.
to the previous
Yeah.
one.
I don't have to see.
We also
depending on what the
always,
sun is.
we err on the side of caution with landscaping when we are this close to the ocean, just because a
Upkeep.
few palm trees, but yeah, the upkeep and maintenance starts to get a little out of control, and we don't wanna overload our maintenance team.
Is there parking specifically in this parking lot for golf carts?
Yes.
How many?
What do we have, 8, I think? Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but these I know are golf cart. All of these smaller ones that'll be on corners are supposed to be golf cart parking. Again, this is, we're basically doing this like we've had to do all of our other projects, breaking it out. This would be phase 1. Public Works is also something you'll notice here is there's no dumpster.
Yeah,
That
I
in
saw
this
that.
phase is getting moved, so we're gonna move that dumpster over to by the restrooms. Actually, Mr. Barron and his team are working on trying to get that going for us soon, so we're really happy about that. And then we will also have the art committee work with some local muralists to paint a beautiful mural around the dumpster. So we will make it as lovely as we can.
The dumpsters, that's what Lynch's,
Mhm.
Goku, do they know about?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, you guys have talked to them, haven't you, Dennis?
This plan has been in the works for so many years. I don't know that Oku or any of them people were even here when it was designed, but they are forced to have to use the dumpster enclosure that's there, so when we move it to the north end of the parking lot, they'll have to accommodate moving it. They already have to move it with their big rolling totes and whatnot to move it over there anyway, so, it's actually going street side to the left of the restrooms out, actually closer to First Street, but there'll still be access from the parking lot.
Now, this, I'm so happy we're doing this already. What about the rest of the parking lot? Is that gonna get some TLC as well?
Yeah, and in due time, it'll all accommodate. I didn't put the full plans in here, but in due time, it will go to that full original pier parking lot plan where, it's re-milled, re-asphalt, restriped, all new, the parking lot medians will get all new plants, and then also turtle-friendly lighting in all of the parking areas. We've been working with Beaches Energy on the lighting. We've shown PD what we're anticipating having here for lights, and make sure all the right departments have been engaged. We just wanna get this piece done and then start working on that next phase of the parking lot.
Would the next phase include the, new electric vehicle charging stations?
We talked about that, no. They're not operational now, are they?
No, there's nothing.
Yeah.
This one behind there, the Cape lot doesn't work, and then Latham Plaza doesn't work either.
Right.
There are a couple in this lot too, I think.
But they're not,
They don't
they're
work.
not, they're not, there's nothing
It
there.
didn't work, or they were outdated or something.
I would think those would be things, just if they're already existing, be relatively simple. If that was the desire to replace them. I can't imagine that would be too difficult to do. And that would be our goal, is to have whatever's there already and just upgrade what's existing in that parking lot. It's not changing the intent of this parking lot. We also still have our agreement with COJ that we have to have 100 spaces for the pier. We're still accommodating that. It's just really gonna get a much needed facelift and cleaning the area up.
Now, what about the pier entryway? That was something that's been discussed for a long time, you know, that we need to come up with something to make it more, look nicer and not so prison-like. Where are we on that?
Can you give me 2 slides?
Oh, okay, coming up. Got it.
Well, I will say to that though, because I used to say it looks like the entrance to San Quentin, but the new operator of the pier has made it so much more welcoming, and there's like a little booth and the place
It's
where
better,
it was
but
like
I think it
spray
could
painted.
be more, I think we were
Certainly don't
thinking
disagree.
something a little more iconic or something that.
Agree. But I'm just saying my
It's the
trackus
business.
with it is
Yeah.
definitely much less now than it was.
I'm happy to see this coming, but it's way too long that we haven't had access to this lot. I mentioned this to Mike. I know we had these teacup agreements with first the pier provider, then the hotel, or the pier builder, then the hotel builder, and then Starbucks. But I wanna make sure everybody that's in here from the city hears my opinion, which is when we do these things, there is not another agreement. You take our property, you use it, it goes back to exactly the way it was before anybody else touches it. Because at this point, we're 3 people in and nobody knows what belongs to who, and nobody can figure out what is somebody's responsibility for fixing it. And the last guy doesn't wanna clean up everybody's mess. So I just wanna make sure that in the future, that I'm saying this, because I know we've got a lot of projects coming. So if we're taking public space, it needs to be put back to where it for the citizens, and they can get to use it, because we could have been using this for a while now if it had been back to where it was supposed to be. Just my thought. Sorry, I'm not.
No, that's
No, that's
You're
okay.
in the grumpy house.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna say what I gotta say.
Totally agree.
Taylor, is there any seating in there? You know, with Starbucks right there and then the other little cafe across the street, I can't think of the name of it right now. Would be nice if there was a little bit of seating.
Ukama.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. That is something I think we could accommodate quite easily. We can do some small benches across there. I don't think that would be an issue at all.
Our little
I
rocks
think
over
it
there.
just
So
make it a
Yeah.
nice little spot for people to
Yeah,
sit
that's a
and
great
have
idea.
coffee and things. And,
We also have all those big rocks over there, they can just walk a little bit. It's big rocks.
I don't know that they'll be comfortable. Yeah,
Very accommodating.
yeah, we can definitely accommodate with some
We
seating.
don't want you to sit here too long, but you can rest.
Bring your coffee.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? All right, moving right along. So downtown landscaping, our Parks and Recreation staff, we cannot sing their praises enough. They have been working with us and with Prestige Landscape. They have essentially designed a master plan for landscaping downtown. The landscaping, they're using native vegetation that's salt tolerant, that's going to do well in this environment, that we're not gonna have to constantly be tending to, and essentially we have this beautiful flower bed for a week, and then it's dead for 6 months. We want to avoid that. So next slide, we're gonna show you a couple of pictures. They are the renderings we received from Prestige. Some of the components aren't identical, it's just the rendering, but it's to give you an idea of our goal, our design intent, if you will. So this is obviously over by Joe's, and it's really hard to see. We've got some boulders, some vegetation, and then that crushed coquina shell in there. This is by Walgreens coming down beach, really greening those flower beds up, not so barren. We will not have mulch. This will be that crushed coquina. We will not have mulch at all. Nope, we don't like it. We're not doing mulch. This is, again, heading down beach, close to the lifeguard station. We're gonna have that crushed coquina, really natural green vegetation, this is next to sneakers. We'll have some grass there because this is actually a really large median. And it didn't make sense to have just that much shells everywhere, so we really want to try and break some of that up with some grass. So we'll have that, some boulders, and again, native vegetation, kind of following the same theme throughout here as well. This is over at Best Western, and this is coming on beach straight from Third. Again, where you see red, it will not be red, it will be coquina. We just did not get that note in there before they did these designs. The next one, that is going to be our first kind of stab at this plan. This is an old image. This is not the condition now, we all know that. But this is where our sculpture is going. So, what we want this to be, we want to keep the palm trees existing, because we don't want to get rid of those. We want to keep the landscaping very simple. We want the sculpture to be that focal point. The base around the sculpture, we plan to have, again, that crushed coquina. But Trevor Hughes with Parks and Rec, there is a material that he can pour basically over this coquina shell to where it's still permeable, but it makes it a solid surface, so it keeps it ADA accessible. You'll notice in the front, we are doing away with the stairs. There will be a ramp. We just don't have it shown on here, so I apologize for that. But everything will be accessible. There'll be no stairs. And then all around the back side, we're gonna keep the vegetation relatively low. Our taller bushes will go right up against the white fence because that won't provide an easy area to access to give a nice buffer between the fence and the bushes like it was before. And then everything between there and the back side of those palms will be low vegetation. And again, they're all native plants, so our goal is to keep the maintenance as simple as possible and to keep it as lush and pretty as long as we can.
I have a question, but it's more on slide C on one of the pictures. Sneakers, right there on First Street. That's usually, sometimes I see some of the PD, they'll stop, they'll park there and they'll hide and they get a lot of guns and drugs off the street. Does this affect you guys at all? Are you guys still able to do the job to get?
You're talking about the one right there next to sneakers right on
Yeah.
Stockton?
We'll find a place where we need to be.
mulch is going away. You mentioned the red mulch, but we're also doing away with the black mulch.
All mulch.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm thrilled
Yeah.
with that development. And so I know that the CRA prioritized certain corridors for landscaping, but ultimately, is this going to be throughout the CRA?
Mhm.
And last question, is Prestige going to be on a maintenance contract? So they'll install, but will they also be providing the maintenance for this landscaping?
I believe I'll defer to Jason, but yes, they help us with the maintenance. Obviously, Trevor and his crews get out there on the day-to-day if something is wrong, but there is a maintenance contract with Prestige.
Okay.
Is that correct, Jason?
Yes.
All right, I want to make sure I said that right.
It's like
Correct.
exactly in my.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it looks beautiful. I'm really excited. I think that is going to be a great improvement, especially once the public art is there. And
Before we jump to Bullet Hill,
Would there
sorry.
be any lighting on that, art piece too? Is that what we had talked about that a little bit?
So we will have some, it'll be very minimal, again, because we're on a weird spot there where we're right on a buffer of, do we have to be turtle friendly, do we not? And rather than risk it and then have to go through a whole DEP process again, we're gonna keep it as minimal as possible to where we're not gonna violate anything. So it'll be a lot of, kind of ground lighting, just uplighting the columns, and then the existing street lighting that's around it.
It just, that would be a nice feature if lit properly at night,
Right.
you know.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
really
Those
make
tiles
a
will shine.
statement as you come into the city.
Didn't the artist talk about some kind of like photovol, or?
Voltaic.
Yeah, tiles, did he talk about that? So there'd be some like glimmering in.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
All right. Public art. Again, our water columns, I also want to remind we do not have flowing water. I get that question a lot. I just want to specify, I promise we're not going to put shower towers on that corner, I promise. The columns are 32 inches wide. They're all 8 inches deep. They are going to be poured concrete foundation that is on concrete cinder blocks with rebar down into the ground. Our building official has also been involved. If you've been by, they've started forming up where the columns are going to go. The building official has been involved as well to make sure that whatever's going in is going to withstand what we need it to withstand. The last two bullets are directly from the artist. So that is the handcrafted homesick stoneware sculpture tiles. And yes, that's my reaction. And Amico Potter's Choice Mid-Fire Glaze is type glaze. I have been told that these are wonderful. I wish some of our art committee was here because maybe they could attest to this. I'm going to trust the artist that these are the right materials. In the picture we showed, they were all sea stars. That since changed when we brought it to you guys for approval. It had changed. The drawings just hadn't. So these are the 7 columns. We have sea star, seahorse, horseshoe crabs, fish, and then the 3 levels of the Lake Plateau that runs from Miami to the Carolinas. The artist is really passionate about all of his pieces having purpose and having multiple layers of stories. So starting at the shortest column is going to be the sea stars because they are found in the shallow waters. And then as the columns get taller and you essentially get deeper into the water, the animals are going to change and they're going to reflect the animals that'll be at that depth, which is really cool. And then the blue background tile work will also change to reflect the depths of the ocean. So this is from the artist. This is the sea star actually in progress. The way he does these, he creates these molds, and then he actually goes in and does all of his tile work. So the water is going to look like this, so that'll kind of be all the background. The exterior of the sea turtle will look like this, and any of you that were at the meeting we had at Papa Joe got to see and feel these. It was to see them in person. It's incredible how this looks, and this is going to be the interior sample color of the turtle. Or gosh, sorry, the sea star. I'm so used to sea turtles. Seahorse is in progress as well. You can see the water's getting a little darker and the sample seahorse color. Our horseshoe crab, again, water sample, and then the exterior and interior colors of the horseshoe crab. These were some of the tiles I remember specifically that almost glimmered. It was really unique the way he was able to glaze those. Excuse me. We have the fish. The fish are all, they have different colors, which I think is really cool. It's going to represent a lot of different fish, and then the water again is getting darker. The Lake Plateau is going to be starting to get really dark, and then we're going to have different corals because that is what's found. That reef actually runs from Miami to basically off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina. It is the world's largest known deep water coral reef, which is really cool that we have this right off our coast. And then the Blake Ridge. He had not gotten to the tile work yet, but we're going to feature water will be very, very dark blue, and it will feature these animals from the Deeps part of the bridge. And just a couple more updates.
Can we stop on that really quick though? I thought it was great to have them meet the artist,
Yeah.
and I was really glad to see so many of our council, CRA, and public art committee there. He's very dynamic, and getting to feel the tiles and everything was really cool. We had talked at that meeting about possibly unveiling it in conjunction with an event, particularly I think I suggested FinFest. Is
Yep.
that potentially?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's right.
And then I would really like to see us maybe get with artists to do a feature on
Okay.
this artist and this project, because he is so dynamic, and
Yeah.
the process is so interesting, and it's such a big investment that I think it would be worth pitching it to them, because I think they'd be very interested in that.
When we created the art committee, they came and featured and did an article on the public art committee, so we'll reach out to our
Okay.
contact, and I think they would love that. And I'm glad you stopped me because I got too excited to go to the next step. The concrete contractor is local. He is working on pouring the concrete here over the next week or two. Once that concrete is poured, it will remain concrete for a few weeks while we get the ground in with the crushed coquina and then kind of get that sealed. And then we will simultaneously work while Mr. Portada comes up with his team to install all the tile work. We'll be working on the landscaping around it at the same time. And Mr. Portada would like to get up there in July. I mean, so he's really wanting to get this moving quick. So. And then yes, we would like to work with FinFest potentially to have a big ribbon cutting unveiling, have the artist come back and tie that in, because the mission of FinFest really ties in with what this artist is passionate about, and we think it'd be a really good opportunity to link the two. All right. So on our sea life in the city, this was the survey that went out to the public. We asked what animal they would most like to see. The sea turtle won by a landslide. We met with Habit Studios. They are local. They are the ones who handle the sculpture garden down on the southern end of the downtown district. So they're currently working up 3 kind of different design options for that first sea turtle. And based off of their designs and how it's going to need to be fixed to the ground and the height and what it'll look like, we kind of walked around and talked about different locations. But ultimately, when they get us their design, we kind of left it in their hands. They're the professionals. They're used to installing things out here. We want them to also recommend what potential locations would work best with the turtle. So we expect to have that back in a couple of weeks. We are meeting tomorrow. The art committee, their meeting is a week ahead of time due to scheduling conflicts. But we want to work with Parks and Recreation and the art committee to host basically a mural weekend festival. If you've never, the Macon Arts Alliance does this in Macon, Georgia, kind of where we got the idea from. They have a weekend, it's Saturday and Sunday. They pick buildings every year, and they have local muralists come out and host a weekend for people to come out, meet the artists, talk to people, and kind of watch the process of how these murals unfold. What we would like to do is tie this with the arts market in November potentially, if the arts market would like to have us tie in with them. It's the first weekend of November, and then feature 3 different local artists to do murals on the 3 public restroom facilities in the downtown. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to be talking about tomorrow with the art committee. The pier entryway sculpture. We have got a presentation put together for the art committee tomorrow, and it features several artists. The beauty of using Cafe, which is call for entry on all of these first projects, is we have a massive database now of really talented artists. So the way procurement works for public art in the state of Florida is you're able to commission a piece. You don't actually have to put anything out to bid. So they're going to be reviewing artist portfolios, some of the pieces maybe they'd submitted previously, and tomorrow really work up fine-tuning that theme and design intent for that piece that we want to see, and then be able to start having conversations with sculpture artists to start working on the design for that pier entryway piece. They want something dynamic. They, I know, want it to reflect the beach life, and again, to make it not look so kind of barren and stark. So I anticipate we'll have a lot of updates after our art meeting tomorrow. We'll see. And then a couple of other things we're looking at, adding mural to the facade grant program to help with murals in the downtown to continue to encourage vibrant art. If you've ever been to cities that have crosswalk murals, they don't last, but they're, in the world of art, relatively inexpensive. They're really cool, and again, it's something fun for people to come out and watch happen on a weekend, and a really easy way to not only feature local artists, but even the high schools and the schools and their art programs to come out. And then some temporary art installations, maybe on weekends or during weeks when we have downtime. Maybe we have a pop-up art installation in the plaza for people to come out and take a look at. That's something that our committee is looking at tomorrow. And then myself and our communications manager are working on a map of the downtown where it basically will have Google pin drops. You hover over them, you click on it, it tells you about the art piece, who did it, the story behind it. And then at each of the pieces, we plan to install QR codes where people can also scan them. That'll take them to that information as well. Does anybody have any questions on our public art?
I just don't wanna forget to mention, and I don't know if it would serve the purpose, that the museum uses the Clio app, which is Google
Okay.
Map driven, that you can, if you're near a site, you can just pull it up and click on it, have photos, information, links to videos, whatever, and it's free to the user as well as the organization. CLIO.
CLIO, okay, thank you. All right.
The one thing that we talked about a little bit was at, across from Ocean Front Park, there's the, University of North Florida little park, space. They put those up for sale every so often, and we had mentioned that maybe that would be something that the art committee ought to take a look at and see whether it makes sense to purchase any of those and maybe install them somewhere in the city as another option.
So it would have to be something that a lot of planning is gonna have to go into it, so we're gonna have to work with Ms. Hager and Havoc Studios when we know they're gonna auction those pieces off, because what we'd have to do is, my understanding is get our committee to recommend it to you guys, and then take it to council and say up to X amount of dollars, you know.
Cause it's an auction, it's
Right.
not just a
Yeah,
straight.
right.
So, it's a little bit of, it just adds a couple of layers of difficulty. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but it's definitely something we would like to explore. It's just gonna have to be a little bit of a longer process than just being able to go to the auction and purchase. All right, we are now also in the midst of updating our downtown plan. Staff has been working with the Southern Group on this. The plan we have now is great. It's really long, and it gets really confusing. There's a lot of charts in there that kind of repeat information. And so we're really wanting to update, number one, the introduction of the plan to just reflect the current conditions of the downtown and the state statute. We want to also update, explain the redevelopment powers and complying with state statutes, and then also adding a section to that that really does explain the council and CRA roles, because every city is unique and they're different, and so we really want to make sure in that plan moving forward, the roles are clearly defined. We want to make sure the redevelopment objectives are clear, and we're going to tie those back to the city's strategic plan. We want to simplify that implementation strategy and tie again that back to appropriate statutes. We'll be updating the section on RD rezoning, and then we'll clearly identify completed projects and then projects that have started and will be ongoing, because right now that kind of falls into a gray area, which makes it difficult to interpret. We want to identify all the capital projects that are still to be completed, list new projects, add projects that are directly out of the strategic plan, and then we need to update the Kate section because it still references having 2 or 4 officers, and that is very dated information. And then just updating the graphics throughout the document. Again, this stuff is pretty dated. So we anticipate having a draft in CRA at their July or August meeting. I'm sure there'll be feedback and comments. Once we get that final version of the CRA, that will then come to City Council, and then we'll follow the process up to public hearings, notifying the county, and we'll follow the normal steps.
What does that mean, where it says update the section on the RD rezoning?
Just explaining what the purpose of the redevelopment district zoning is a little bit better than it intends. I don't think it's in there now at all, I'm not mentioning it, but we wanna just elaborate on the purpose of that and why it's a benefit to the district.
Got it.
Anybody have any other questions on the downtown plan? But hopefully you guys will see this, hopefully August, September. In a perfect world, we'd love to have it completed before the start of the new fiscal year.
Yeah.
But
On the plan, I know there's 3 empty lots, the old Buckets lot, and then behind Joe's Scrap Shack, and right next to those 2 houses. Any word what's going on? Is it money, finance with developers? I know every construction cost is through the roof, but.
It's a big part of it. We haven't talked to the owners of what used to be Buckets in a while. And the Dolphin Depot project, as we call it, the one right across from Margaritaville, they put that on hold. They didn't explain why. They just are focusing on other projects, I think, right now. What was the other one that you mentioned?
The
Joe's
old
Scrap
motel behind Joe's Scrap Shack.
privately owned. You know, we reach out, we can ask for updates, but if there's no update to be provided, you know, it's one of the situations we can't.
Is there anything that we can do as city or CRA?
I have met with them, and Ash Properties is the one that has the property along the ocean. I think they're kind of waiting to see what happens with the P3 before they
Yeah.
decide what they're going to do, because if it works out for them, they can kind of incorporate it through what they want to develop there. So that's kind of an if. What were the other ones you mentioned?
The
Dolphin Depot you
Buckets.
mentioned. Yeah, that's construction costs. I think
Yeah.
they're just focusing on other projects. I met with them as well. Then what was
was the other lot,
Little buckets.
not buckets. So the old motel that used to be behind Joe's Crab Shack, and then right across
That's,
there's
Yeah.
another.
that's Ash Properties.
Yeah, that's the same property.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the same owners.
Yeah.
They also own the parking lot across.
What happened with the Levy's? And, you know, you
We
had
have
talked about that
plans.
being a
Yeah, we have plans in
redevelopment,
review.
and now all of a sudden it's a parking lot, so.
Yeah, they were just trying to clean up the site, but we got a new set of plans to review this week.
They're gonna
So,
So they did all that work and they're still planning on
$20
development.
a
Yep.
spot.
I have a meeting with them tomorrow.
Correct,
I'll
they
just
are moving
say that.
forward.
correct.
Yeah.
At a glacial pace.
All right. Any questions on downtown update? This is our last slide. If there are projects or things we did not touch on, I'm happy to answer questions. And as always, if we leave this meeting and something pops in your head tomorrow or the next day, please email me, call me, text me. I'm happy to meet with anyone anytime questions come up.
Any updates on the pilot program we approved a couple years ago with the outdoor dining? Have they said anything?
It's going
It's still
great.
going
And to
great.
my knowledge, police department, you really haven't had any issues either with that area. Nothing major.
Nothing major.
Yeah. It
We're now a year or two under
Yep.
the pilot. When does it expand?
potentially at the expiration of the pilot program, which will be coming up here in a few months. So,
January, I believe.
we'll see.
We can talk about it and recircle back to that in January of if we want to continue it, expand it, both, none. I mean, we think it's going well, so we have some ideas for expanding.
We'll probably bring it to the council in the fall at a briefing, from the perspective of, you know, if they want to consider expanding it to do something before the expiration of the pilot. So that way we're not caught in a loop of pilot has technically expired,
Right.
but there's an intention to do something.
And I know the last time we talked about this was, I think, 2 years ago, maybe 3, the empty lot that city owns right behind the Ritz, that little corner lot. Is there any plans for that?
Not at this point in time.
It could be a prime location for a temporary art installation. I'll just say that.
We have discussed that, yeah.
The police also use it for staging, so for now we'll just. Smile.
I think it's probably it should be used
Yeah.
to help surrounding businesses, maybe AKA a garage if it's feasible. Partnership, I don't know, but just sitting there empty, it's driving me nuts. Or any empty lot drives me nuts,
Understood.
so, just me.
So, I don't know when it was, it has to have been over a year ago, maybe longer, I don't know. But there was a discussion in one of the CRA meetings, and it was about a parking study or
Mhm.
something like that.
Yep.
What's happened with that?
Unfortunately, in that fiscal year, the quotes we got back on the costs of those were just quite frankly astronomical. So that has been put on hold. We were able to do our market analysis. So we had a high level understanding of our parking needs. We've just not been able to really get down in the weeds and get that parking study done.
So is it something that's on the radar to be done, or?
It's still on the radar, we're just not sure exactly when we're gonna get that completed based on funding and timing and stuff. And that lot that you mentioned, it was, I believe, originally purchased by the CRA to be part of a future garage down the road, but all the property couldn't be assembled. We were not here, so we just know a little background on it.
Now we're.
We don't have, yeah,
stuck with it.
until we get direction on what to do with it.
Maybe it'd be one of those things you just tap into your guys' contract, just pave it, so there's, more parking.
That
It's
property
like
was,
one parking.
that property was 3 totally slummy residential buildings owned by a retired merchant marine named McLaughlin. And it was a den of anything you care to imagine. And the CRA took it out, and a lot of criticism because they took it out based on 3-year-old appraisals, but they took it out in 2008 and 9. So they paid a lot of money for it relative to the value of the time they bought it. But it was bought because it was a gross slum, largely, and it was really weird. I've got property tax that I can attest to that. It's a good thing they got it too, because what was there was awful. And what was directly across the street, which was also taken out then, was awful.
Since we don't have any plans for the lot, can we begin discussions on what to do with that lot? Mr.
Yeah,
Campos?
Okay, why not?
Absolutely.
Would you guys like to, are they allowed to give us ideas and thoughts since it's been on our bucket in multiple times and multiple discussions amongst us, or is this an appropriate time to have that?
Probably not a good time to start that conversation since it's just not coming up and it's not really on our agenda at this point, so we'll just put it on the list.
I would recommend we can start it as a workshop topic for the CRA and then take that to council, listen to ideas out of it.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you guys, that was a really great update. I feel really good about the direction of the projects that have been lingering out there for a while, but it's nice to start to see the light at the end of the tunnel on some of these things and in a really good way and a well thought out direction. So thank you to the CRA and staff for your work on that. And keep it up.
Thank you. I want to thank the CRA. I know you guys have been doing a lot, and you know it's obviously taking a long time to get things done, but I think we're obviously seeing some good things. So thank you.
Wheels